Christians were seen as people who wanted to convert us at all costs. So literally I was banned from singing in churches even though I was a boy soprano as a child. And only later did I realise how much fun I could have with it. So here we go. There's a strong reason we just sang and spoke Psalm 23. It's not just that it's a famous psalm. It's the one that allows us to take refuge in a kind and protective God, and not all the psalms are like that, are they? It is the fact that it comes after Psalm 22. And at first you might think Psalm 22, but it is such a great work of literature. One of the great pleas of humanity is that psalm. Hence, it is in the words of Jesus at this crucial time in Easter. I'm really unable to do justice to the story of Jesus, so I'm not even going to try properly. But we all know that however we define miracles, they are possible. So it's up to us to simply decide how literal this miracle is of resurrection and how metaphorical it is. But our faith in the act of a miraculous universe should not ever come into question, should it? So anyway, we have these two psalms and they speak to me of something that is in Easter, of death and resurrection. It's like a foretelling. It's like Jesus speaks Psalm 22 because he knows later that Psalm 23 will be spoken when all is well. It's a profound, profound thought that the Psalms can be telling the story of our life and our history as opposed to just being something we read. So in Psalm 22, we feel almost too vividly the fear of death. There is no external circumstance to me that is strong enough to explain this as a work. Everything we believe or have believed in is suddenly meaningless in this psalm. Maybe just for an instant, but maybe for the whole time of death. And we have to find ourselves without our name, without our fame, without our possessions, and maybe even without our beliefs for a while. And for all of us, we have times when life really seems like Psalm 22. And that's in Australia. We do not have to die to feel that we are dying alive. Most of us have nights of sorrow, whether it is the death of a family member, the loss of something dear, or remorse for past actions. But there's this thing about this psalm, it's doubly immortal because we know from the Gospels of Matthew and Mark the moment in the story of Jesus that is most humbling. Even our greatest man in the Western tradition suffers. Actually, this is not just common to Christianity, but just read the Ramayana and we will hear that the divine Ram who has come to this earth in a manner similar to how Jesus has come to this earth suffers greatly and weeps when he loses his beloved Sita. The meaning is clear of both these stories. There is no escaping suffering when we live in a body. The Buddha was right when he wrote the Four Noble Truths, with truth one, saying that there is suffering in this life. But the story of these two psalms is the story of the Noble Truths. I'll just try and give it a sense of how this psalm moves very briefly. It starts, of course, with that beautiful thing for the leader upon Ajilev Shilchaha, a psalm of David. My God, why hast thou forsaken me and art far from my help at the words of my cry? Or as it's written in the Gospels, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? Or in the original Hebrew, Eli, Eli, lama an asbachti, rechok mishati, davari sha'ati. Just the words are so powerful, however we say them. We have to lose everything to utter those words. There's no doubt about it. And then it goes on, my God, I call you by day, but you do not answer me. And at night I call, but there is no answer. Yet you are still holy. You are enthroned by the praises of Israel. So even in the greatest of despair, what Jesus says is that the very act of questioning our belief is part of the belief itself. And as such, we are glorifying God and we're finding the way through, because this psalm is a narrative of completion before Psalm 23. And if I skip to line 26, we get something quite beautiful. From you comes my praise in a great congregation. I will pay my vows before all who fear God. Let the humble eat and be satisfied. Let us praise the Lord and seek after him. May our hearts be quickened forever. So from all this suffering, we have this sense, in the midst of it, in this psalm of great suffering, that we can leave it. Actually, this reading is a Kabbalistic reading. It's quite interesting to think that we have these sort of hidden meanings about things. But to me, it's simply a teaching about trust. At the point of death, no matter who we are, no matter how pure the life we have led, no matter how strong our connection to the divine, or whatever we like to say about ourselves, there is a moment where we will lose control prior to transformation, whatever that is. We'll lose our grip on the side of the mountain, on the final step, with the summit in sight. But only by allowing ourselves to fall can we actually reach the top. Now, isn't that a profound thought? That's what these psalms say to us. Only by allowing ourselves to fall will we reach the top. So no matter how hard we work, how earnest, how good or right we think we are, at some point we will have to surrender our notion of ourselves in order to actually grow. And when we have lost and cried and fallen and lamented and finally grown, we have Psalm 23, which would not truly satisfy us otherwise. When we are connected again, it is greater, deeper, and more profound. The only thing more profound than death is rebirth. Can I say that again? However we define rebirth, let's think about this. The only thing more profound than death is rebirth. And this is the cycle of life. The radical idea that it is possible to live beyond the failings of the body is still the greatest thing we have to grapple with in this life. Do I believe this? Do I really believe I am more than this body without the evidence of the senses of the mind? It requires an act of faith. But that's why we have Psalm 23, because we hear, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He brings me to lie down in green pastures and leads me to the still waters. This is a plain teaching. To me it says, if the Lord is my shepherd, there is more than myself, this body and this mind, my name and fame, my desires. By simply accepting this, which is not easy, I may and hopefully will be provided for. Because what used to hurt me can potentially be understood. And then even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod and staff, they comfort me. This is surely a calling, if we can find the belief to commit to it. It doesn't matter what the belief is, but it's the act of committing to it throughout the life that this psalm says is so important. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup runs over. Suddenly I am more than I could have ever hoped to make myself. The oil represents my fundamental nature. All is forgiven. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We can only interpret this as having hope and belief that some realization can be held through this life. And if we are lucky, if we can pass through the eye of the needle, that is the whole teaching of this festival, beyond this life. Now, isn't that something to really strive for? And in my simple mind, that's what Jesus did all this time ago. I can't define it better than that. So for me, Easter is a time of great, great rejoicing, because the turning from Jesus to Christ is not so different to the attaining of Buddhahood, however we define it. Now, of course, it's easy to say it's all the same. We don't want to say that. All religions are very, very different. But at the same time, we have to make these connections in our heart, because as Gandhi says, God has no religion. So I finished by just returning to what I mentioned briefly, these four noble truths. Because these signs are like a narrative. They tell us that there is suffering. That suffering actually originates in ourselves. If the Lord is my shepherd, and I can believe that, the root cause of suffering that Buddhism says is me. Now, isn't that scary? But the Noble Truths go on. They say it is possible to end this if we follow a path. And that if I follow this path and I find a discipline, that I, like all those who've walked through the needle, can overcome this suffering and achieve something very, very good. Blessed.